Good evening and welcome to the Burbank Police Commission meeting for Wednesday, April 17th, 2024. We will go ahead and start with our call to order. And Romick, would you lead us in the flag salute? Actually, let me back up for a moment. Let me start with the intro and then we'll go into the flag salute. The public comment period will be upcoming in a few minutes. For community members here in person, please complete a speaker's card and hand to staff. For members who wish to phone in comments, please call 818-238-3335. Callers will be placed in a queue until all in-person comments have been received. And Romick, would you mind leading us in this flag salute?
Absolutely. Everybody rise. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Romick. So we will go ahead and start with commission announcements and reporting out by commissioners and ad hoc subcommittees. And this is a time for brief announcements by commissioners and brief reports regarding activities of ad hoc subcommittees. And Romick, if you want to start, and actually this would be a great time to share that information. Yeah, go ahead.
So first I want to, start off with Tuesday, April 2nd. Myself, and Commissioner McKenna met with Superintendent John Paramo, part of a monthly meeting. I know Ann wasn't there, but it was a great meeting about schools, safety, and it was pretty fantastic. And then for an update from our ad hoc subcommittee, I believe it was our pedestrian safety. Was that what we're, yeah. So our pedestrian safety ad hoc committee.
Actually, it's the traffic safety.
Traffic safety. Sorry, I apologize. We've been part of this project for the driver safety campaign. As you can see, all of you, there's some available for the public there. There's a trifold you can view. I'm just going to do a high-level brief overview. There's a poster. This is just basically collateral that we have so far. And what's really wonderful is you'll see a lot of supporting partners that are supporting this campaign. This is a big project that we're working on with dealerships all throughout the city, and there's actually 5 additional logos that are going to go on there. Everything's going great so far. Next steps would be a launch event, and then after that, we'll see what happens.
Thank you, Romick. Thank you. Paul, do you have anything to report on?
Well, yes, I just attended that same meeting, but and as an after part of it, Captain and I were part of a program, a speech contest at Muir, where we had an opportunity to work with a lot of high school students who came to judge the speech contest. And so when we were in the room without the 8th grade students there, I asked them about the RSOs and their, school resource officers and what their feelings were. And I was really, really pleased at the positive that any student that had a reservation, like 2 students sort of came over and said, but this is why. And it was really good to see and refreshing, and something I felt was worth mentioning.
Great. Thank you. Layla, do you have anything to report on it?
I'll save it for, we have an agenda item around it.
Great.
Thank you.
I just wanted to share, I did my homework after the last meeting. David Donahue had made a presentation and asked a specific question about how information gets conveyed to the city council. And also with that, some questions about Vision Zero. So I went back and I reviewed. I'm really appreciative of the fact that the city has the Granicus system, where we can both pull old agenda items plus minutes. We can also get video of those meetings. So, the Vision Zero that we've been discussing has actually been, the city's been contemplating this. I could see as far going back as 2016, where the League of California Cities was recommending the Vision Zero program. And so Burbank has a program called the Complete Streets Plan. That's what they've named it. And so there have been periodic reports back over time from various city offices to the city council. So it's been included in there as far as discussing Vision Zero. Vision Zero, the League of California Cities is recommending that all cities do this. So instead of naming it Vision Zero, it looks like Burbank opted to name it the Complete Streets Plan. As far as reporting back out things that happen here that go to City Council, there's a couple of mechanisms for that. The first is periodically a presentation that the police department does here. They will sometimes give it a test drive here, if you will, and then take it to the City Council. And it's a little bit challenging to track it unless you're looking at all of the material. In this particular situation, it looks like on January 2023, there was a report from the Community Development and Public Works Department to the city manager, which included, amongst a number of different departments, Burbank Police Department shared some information there. So that's the vehicle of how the information is going from the police department to the city council that may be addressed here. But there's no specific Vision Zero report that was presented here that went directly to the city council. That's what I came up with. So it took a little bit of time, but I was able to get through it. Thank you. Mike, you have anything?
Yes. Last Thursday, I had the pleasure of accompanying Captain Cornelius to the graduation ceremony for our newest recruit on the police department, Officer Grotto. It was really an eye-opening event for me. There were probably 5 other cities there and the LA Sheriff's Department, and I was surprised how small the graduating class was. It was 27 new officers for the Sheriff's Department and 5 additional cities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Ann?
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay, thank you. And Mike? All right, thank you. Appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and move on to item D, which is oral communications for 3 minutes. Looks like we have 1 comment card that was handed in. Were there any other comment cards that were received? No? Okay, so if I can call David Donahue up. David, welcome back.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is David Donahue, a homeowner and business owner here in the great city of Burbank. First, to the Commissioners, thank you very much for your service to the community. It is very much appreciated by everyone. Also, to Chief Albanese and to his staff, thank you for the great work that you do, sir. The item that Chair Coombs was reporting back on from what I had brought up the previous commission meeting was the Sergeant Stone report. And I think that was very germane to, I think, the topics that are going to be coming up, as in I believe one of the handouts just outside had to do with pedestrian and vehicle encounters since I think it was 2020 to 2024, some very significant period of time. That, in my opinion, is going to be very relevant to the council as they deliberate Complete Our Streets, Vision Zero, and a number of other mechanisms that are going to be within the Complete Our Streets sort of outline. As I remember, it's a 200-page document approved in 2020, and it is significant. And I believe that the input from the police department is going to be critical, because I have heard Mayor Schultz advocate that 1 death is too many. That is a quote. It is on the record. And if Vision Zero is implemented to the extent that it was reported on from Sergeant Stone, actually the implementation would be an additional threat to our community, because if I recall correctly, deaths went up. Vehicle and pedestrian encounters went up. They did not go down. It was the reverse of what the tenets of the document are. So having the actual data from the Burbank Police Department as they happen, I would hope that this body would advocate to staff, to the Public Works Department, to ensure that that information gets to the council members in person. I know they have a busy schedule, and it's going to be hard to get on it for the end of the year, but even if it's in 2025, I believe it would be a benefit to the community to hear the data and hear the work that the police department has been doing. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any telephonic callers? I guess that's Department of Redundancy Department. Do we have any callers?
We have 2 callers, sir.
Okay.
Our first caller is going to be Hovannes Tonyan, sir.
Commission.
Yeah, go ahead.
Good afternoon to the Commission and the community. I'm Hovannes, a fellow neighbor. I'm calling to raise awareness for crime victims' rights in Burbank. And next week, from April 21 to April 27, is the National Week for Crime Victims' Rights. And I'm eager for us all to rise up with and give our thanks to our public servants who protect our communities from crime. Thank you.
And our next caller?
Our next caller is going to be Ross Benson. Sir, you are now on live.
Hello, Commissioners. I noticed a couple of minutes ago, Paul had said that the Boca Ball event, we should put out correct information. It has been moved to June because of weather relations, and it'll be June 8th at Lakeside Golf Club. Just want to make sure the correct date is put out because it's a great fundraiser for the foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benson. Okay, no other callers?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. So we have item E, Commission response to public comments. The Commission cannot act on items raised during public comment. Commissioners may only provide brief, non-substantive responses, request clarification, or refer the items to staff. So do we have any responses to the callers? Romit, go ahead.
First, I want to thank everyone who came in person and also called in. The response to Mr. Donahue's Vision Zero conversation, I mean, you and I have had extensive conversations regarding this, and obviously Vision Zero is a very complicated system, depending on the culture, the community that's being implemented in. So I really understand your concerns, and we'll see if we have a way we can convey that message to City Council and other departments. And I believe caller Jovanes Tonian?
Tunyon.
Is that right? I really didn't understand what the public comment was.
What was the dates there?
Yeah, it was about crime. It was about Crime Victims' Rights Week, and I'll do something with that in the closing.
Sure, of course. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you.
Nothing, sir.
Layla, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the folks who came down and the folks who called in. And yes, you're right. We are going to be discussing around doing some research into or analysis around pedestrian safety here in Burbank, because it is top of mind for a lot of people I know, including myself. So if that can shed any light, on this Vision Zero conversation or complete streets or anything else, yeah, we'll definitely, make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments? All right. I just want to say thank you to our public comment and our callers. Mr. Donahue, thank you for following up on that. One of the things that I did learn, a little adding to what I had mentioned earlier, is I was impressed at how comprehensive the reports are that come from the city manager that go to the city council and how they incorporate information and data. I don't have the inside information in terms of how those meetings and those memos are prepared, but I do know that they're pretty comprehensive. One of the things that's a challenge, and I appreciate folks like you really monitoring this and really looking at what information is being conveyed and where. The good news is there's a lot of good information online to track that. The hard part is, and as you mentioned in the last month, is that it's really hard to stay on top of everything. So I commend you for staying on top of that. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Tunyon. I'll be making some comments at the very end of the meeting regarding that. And Mr. Benson, thank you for monitoring, making sure we get dates correct. For clarification, there was an event that you were announcing? Or no, because I think I might have missed that in the beginning.
I thought I was discussing that before the meeting started, so.
Oh, okay,
But
okay.
what Ross was talking about was the Burbank Police Foundation had a event scheduled for Saturday to benefit Matthew Pavelka Fund.
Right.
It was moved because of weather to June 6th at Lakeside.
June
So-
8th.
June 8th, Saturday, June
Yeah.
8th. Thank you. Ross will be happy. But the first weekend of June, the first Saturday of June, and, that gives us more time to get people out there to support it.
Perfect.
So,
Thank
yes,
you.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments regarding the public comment? Mike, you have no? We're okay? All right, we're going to go ahead and move on. So the next item is approval of minutes from the March 20th, 2024 meeting. So I will just call for a simple vote actually, we need a motion to approve. Romick is motioning to approve. I need a second. Mike Ellman is seconding. So all in favor of approving the minutes from March 20th, 2024, say aye. Any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, those are approved. Thank you, Sherry. We're moving on. Next item is items of business, and the first item is general announcements by the police chief. These are brief announcements regarding upcoming events and/or items of note related to the police department. Chief, welcome.
So, good evening, Commissioners, and we are somewhat out of order. Typically, I go last, but one of the announcements involves one of our detectives who has worked all day today, and so I want to get her back to normalcy. So I'm going to introduce Detective Christiana Sanchez, who is going to make an announcement and talk about a notable incident involving the Baker to Vegas relay race.
Thank you. Detective Sanchez, welcome.
Hello, good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for having me. Go ahead and cue the PowerPoint. So I'm Detective Christiana Sanchez. I've been a part of the Baker to Vegas relay team since I started in 2008, and I am now on the committee. So the Baker to Vegas relay is a 120-mile relay. It starts in the city of Baker, California, and ends in Las Vegas, Nevada. The relay is comprised of 20 legs that the runners run, and it's divided into difficulty from distance, grade, different environmental conditions. So this year we encountered 50-mile-per-hour winds. In the past, we've encountered 115 degree weather, which obviously causes some medical issues. We've had our later legs will encounter snow. So it really kind of goes, depending on when they put it on, then it really depends on what we deal with. Distances range between 4 miles, the longest being 10 miles. They are, some are downhill, some are uphill, so the grades and difficulty really vary depending on which leg it is. This year there were 258 agencies from around the U.S. and there were a couple of international teams. Burbank was one of the teams that ran this year. So Burbank PD began running this race in 1991. We've competed in the 500 Invitational division, which is sworn and civilian. So you have to have at least 2 civilian runners as well as sworn runners, but there has to be at least 2 civilian runners on there. The last few years we've competed in a more competitive division, which is the 150 category, which is departments that have 150 or less sworn officers. So that division is all sworn, so all 20 runners are sworn officers. And like I said, we've competed in both. For the 500 category, the highest we've ranked is second place in 2008. And then for the 150 category, the highest we've placed is 5th place in 2019. This year we set out, we wanted to set a goal for ourselves to go out and run the fastest time that the department's ever done and try and do the best that we've done for the whole, ever in the history of Burbank. So the team of Burbank, while there are 20 runners, also requires a lot of support staff to go out there. We usually take about 20 to 25 additional staff. There are follow vehicles to make sure that our runners are hydrated, they're safe. If there's any medical issues, they're there to take care of them. We have our alternate runners who are, if a runner goes down or we need to replace a runner, there's alternate runners. There's drivers to get the runners to and from their legs from Las Vegas, because we're driving them all out from each leg. Our command post staff to make sure that our operations are running smoothly. Our catchers the race requires us to have somebody at the end of the race when a runner comes through, literally catch the runner. We have to provide them with water, and then a medical personnel provided by the race attends to the runner. And then lastly is our volunteer position. The race requires us to provide 1 volunteer to help make this race happen. There are 20 legs and there's a lot of things that need to be done at each leg, so we provide 1 volunteer at each leg. This race wouldn't happen without the support of our community, of the businesses, our community members, our family members. Commissioner Chapman is also, a very well-known supporter of our team, and so we can't do this race without that. We don't depend on the department to fund it. It is all based on how we raise our money and what the runners and support staff provide. This year, the Burbank Police Department ran 15 hours, 14 minutes, and 4 seconds. Before that, the fastest we had run was just under 17 hours. So this was a huge accomplishment for us. It also earned us the title of first place in the 150 category. We ran and we beat Culver City, which was the reigning team, by 11 seconds. So our runners went out there and they ran. 5 out of our 20 runners ran under 7-minute miles, an average. And we had one runner actually run 5-minute and 44-second miles. So they went out there, they really trained, we really wanted to win. We ranked 27th out of 258 teams. So we've really set the standard for ourselves. We're looking forward to going out there next year. We have a really great team. It brings a lot back to the department, our camaraderie. We take 50 plus people out there, so it's a really good time that we have out there. And then lastly, we go out there, obviously we run for those who can't. Last year we were able to put Officer Pavelka on our race badges and honor his name in the anniversary of his death. So, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the work you're doing. Being a conscientious objector to exercise in most forms, I commend all of you for doing this. And in particular, really appreciate the, in addition to the runners, the support team to make this happen and the community involvement too. So thank you.
So, continuing with that announcement, this was a really big deal. They were hoping to break 16 hours and to knock it out of the park at 15 and change and beat the second place team by 11 seconds over 120 miles is what, less than a half a second a mile. So, very proud of our team as far as the runners, the support personnel. If you do the math as far as the number of teams, the number of runners, the number of support personnel, the number of individuals that had to staff for the race, it was huge. Great for the department, great for the department's morale. This is one of our biggest team building, unifying events that we do annually. So well done. They will start in a few months prepping up for next year. A long announcement, Ray, I apologize, but we're announcing. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I pushed the line on that one. Okay, a couple announcements for the community. The drug take back is going to be Saturday, April 27th, and it'll be from 10 a.m. to 2 in the afternoon. Saturday, April 27th. Then we have a jail graduation, which will be Friday, May 3rd. We have 2 individuals that are graduating from the jail academy, one of whom is one of our former cadets. So this is a big deal for us and for her. The annual Police and Fire Service Day is going to be Saturday, May 11th, and that'll be from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And that'll be held at the police and fire facilities between Orange Grove, Palm, off 3rd. The entire backside and part of the fire station will host that event. And lastly, we have Coffee with a Cop. That is going to be at Nordstrom Rack. So this is a new venue for us. So this came out of nowhere. I'm not sure what type of coffee services they have there, but we're going to make it work. That'll be Wednesday, May 15th. 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And that's all my announcements.
Great. Chief, quick question for you. For the Police and Fire Service Day, will there be a table available for the commission to have materials there?
We will make it happen. That's
Great.
Sergeant Steve Turner.
Great.
Burbank
Thank you.
police officer, former Marine. So
Excellent.
he will make it happen.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Chief, thank you very much.
You got it.
All right, moving on. Item number 2, under G2, presentation, discussion, and recommendations, if applicable, on the zero bail measure and its effect on the department. And I believe we have Sergeant Jamal Childs. Sergeant Childs, welcome.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Sergeant Jamal Childs, and I'm here to talk to you tonight about the zero bail implementation and its policy and how it's going to affect the city and the department, and hopefully answer any questions you have. So on October 1st of last year, a judicial decision pretty much eliminated cash bail in Los Angeles County. And what that did was the typical pre-arraignment release protocols were changed and things were categorized into 3 different categories. And this only applies for pre-arraignment. So the Penal Code of California, 1270.1, defines serious and violent crimes. Those crimes stay the same and bail remains for those crimes. Most other crimes were categorized into the three sections you see up there, either a magistrate review, an MR, a CR, which is a cite and release, or a BR, which is a book and release. And those are typically nonviolent crimes, low-level offenses, things that are not typically a danger to the community. The arrest procedures remain the same for us as far as taking people to jail, booking them, fingerprinting them, live scanning them, and all that, but the release protocol's changed. So the first one is called a magistrate review. That's probably of the more serious crimes. And what that did was essentially crimes that are more serious, we will submit an officer or an agency arresting someone, they submit a magistrate review. And what that did is they gave the judge the ability to review like individualized risk factors as opposed to financial means for people to get out of jail. So typically criminal history, the type of crime, prior failures to appear factor into the magistrate's review process and will determine whether or not they're going to release someone pre-arraignment. An arrest that meet that criteria, each agency will submit their review through a portal and a judge reviews that. The judge then issues 3 separate decisions. They're either going to release someone on their own recognizance, which is typically called an OR. There could be a conditional release where if you get arrested, you may have to stay at home or you may have to abide by certain restrictions. And then there is the detained for arraignment, which means you're not getting out of jail until you are arraigned. And like I said, for the CR and the BR, which is the lower level offenses, typically that's going to be your petty thefts. A lot of your property crimes fall into that category. These require that the individual has to be released prior to arraignment. So one thing they did was they did give us the option to submit a magistrate review for a CR or BR crime. This is going to get a little confusing. So if you get arrested for a low-level property crime, but let's say you have 25 prior arrests for petty theft, typically a law enforcement agency can submit that type of arrest for an MR, and a judge will make a decision on whether or not they think you're a danger to the community or there is a potential for you to reoffend. Each arresting agency, they must submit this request to the probation department, and they have a unit that reviews all of these, and they make their decision. So what officers can do if you want to do an MR for a CR or BR arrest, typically they ask you to give specific and articulable facts as to why you think we need to hold this person who was arrested for a low-level offense and put them in an MR category. And that can be for various reasons. So if an individual has multiple arrest charges, let's say you have some low-level property offenses, and then you have a serious or violent felony, which is a serious, which would classify as an MR, or I'm sorry, which would classify you for bail. The crime with the bail takes precedence, and the person can bail out. So since October 1st of last year, we've had 23 people in Burbank reoffend and get rearrested after they are released on a CR or a BR. It would be impossible for us to count how many people were arrested that were released on a CR or a BR from another agency and came into Burbank to reoffend, because that's just not something we're able to quantify, essentially, because all that information is going to be at the courts, and we don't have access to all that information just yet. The impact of this is it's almost too early to tell how it's affected things. There's some stats I'm going to show you here in a little bit, and you can make your own conclusions from that, but it's really too early to tell for us the long-term effects it's going to have. So what we do at the department, each arrest that comes through, it goes to if patrol makes an arrest, it's going to be a watch commander that's reviewing it. If the detective bureau makes an arrest, it's either going to be a sergeant like myself or my lieutenant reviewing that arrest, and we're going to look at all types of factors to see if we arrest someone for a CR, BR crime, is there a potential for this person to reoffend? Is this something we want to submit an MR for, which would be a magistrate review, and that gets sent to a judge. And like I said, we do this to make sure if there is a propensity for this person to reoffend, we want to make sure that we're doing what we can to keep the community safe and stopping people from constantly committing crimes over and over and just getting a cite and release or a book and release. And obviously, we do that to ensure public safety. So this last slide is a chart, and what I asked our crime analysts to do is look at October 1st of 2022 to today's date, which would be April 16th of last year, and look at the levels of crimes, and then we compared that to since the inception of this zero bail policy to this year. And so you see robberies are up, grand thefts are down a little bit, petty thefts are way up, vehicle thefts are up, residential burglaries remained about the same, commercial burglaries are up, and assaults are up. So, and that's just been since, comparing this year's time frame to the year prior. And I'll open it up if any of you have any questions.
So let's go ahead. Thank you for the presentation, Sergeant Childs. I think Romick and Ann, you were the ones that had motioned to have this brought to the to tonight's agenda. So let's go ahead and start with Romick. Oh, okay. We'll start with Ann.
Okay, from a very simplistic, the average person on the street, which would include me, the implication is that if there's no bail, a person is off the hook, out to potentially commit more crime. If crime is going up, does that mean that more people are getting out of the jail ticket and just going back out?
Well,
is there a definitive cause effect?
I wouldn't be able to answer that. I'd be strictly speculating, but ultimately, if you are arrested for a low-level offense prior to this zero bail implementation, you would be held in jail until your arraignment unless you were bailed out. But now, if it's your first offense, more than likely you're going to be cited and released. And I guess theoretically you could go out and commit more crimes.
Could one argue that if people, in almost any city, I'm sure, are out on the street, it's not necessarily that, I want to go commit crime, but hey, why not commit crime? Nothing's really bad is going to happen.
I'm sure some people have drawn that conclusion, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Romick?
Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Charles, for that comprehensive presentation. And yeah, this is something that I've been, really researching on my own, learning more about the zero bail policy. In regards to the effects on staff, do you guys see a bigger workload because of what's happening here?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And just to piggyback on what Ann was saying, so it seems like some of the criminals or people committing these acts might be aware of the fact that this law does exist and they could possibly take advantage of it, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Criminals are constantly referencing zero bail when we arrest them. A lot of individuals know they're going to get arrested and cited out.
And can you just kind of share with us, if you have this knowledge in regards to how these type of laws get passed? Is this coming down from LA County, and then all the agencies throughout the area have to abide by that? Is that how it works?
Well, this was a judicial decision that was made by a judge in Los Angeles County. He implemented it for all of Los Angeles County, so there was really no back and forth or way to stop it, essentially.
And is there any type of feedback that you've guys gotten internally in regards to what kind of perception it puts out there of the way things are being conducted, and in regards to safety measures in the community, from the department itself? Are there conversations about how this is affecting the department? Is there a morale conversation or anything like that, or?
Not that I'm aware of. In my current position, I supervise our persons detail, so we typically investigate crimes against persons, violent crimes, sexual crimes, and I hear the detectives on the phone talking to citizens that are frustrated that this person that victimized them was released essentially without much consequence. And for the property detail, I hear those conversations almost all day long from victims complaining to detectives about what happened with this policy.
Well, thank you so much.
Paul, go ahead.
So this is county, not state?
County, yes, sir.
Correct. And so if I'm off base here, just tell me, but we're coming into an election year, and the LA City has a challenge to our district attorney. Is this anything to do with his policies, or is this is actually a law that's gone through the judge, so it would have to be overturned judicially?
The way I understand it would have to be overturned judicially.
Thank you. Layla, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And as a data person, I appreciate you deferring on the causation question because it's very easy to say, to try to draw those conclusions when they're sometimes not clear yet. But I'm just wondering in terms of, you mentioned there were 23 people that have been rearrested in Burbank, if I understood correctly, after being released from custody for some other small level crime. So they've been rearrested. I'm wondering, do you have any sense of how does that compare to just kind of general recidivism? So I'm guessing even in the past, you might have been held on bail. You know, would you really receive a sentence or a sentence of any length, really? I'm guessing not. It's just, you're just always hearing how the jails are overcrowded and all those kind of things, right? So I'm just wondering in terms of bigger picture. So this person commits a low-level crime. In the past, they would have been held for, I'm not sure how long, right before they're arraigned, and then maybe they're released anyway at that point, or maybe they have a relatively short sentence. I mean, I'm not sure, you know, you can let me know if my assumptions are wrong. And now they would just be released pretty immediately, pretty quickly, right? And either, you know, commit another crime or not in either scenario. So I'm just wondering kind of, is it just kind of a time frame that's changed, right? Like the people who were gonna commit another crime, either they're doing it right after because now they're released on bail, or they're just doing it 3 weeks later, you know, after the old process kind of concluded. You know, I'm just trying to get a sense of
Well, I think one thing it
how does
does,
that compare?
one thing it does do is it allows them, if they are someone who's going to commit a crime again, it allows them to do it quicker because you're released. And we've had one guy that was released on, I forget the charge, maybe it was trespassing or a battery or something, and he was arrested literally that same day. And with these cite dates, I think the cite dates range from 30 to 45 days. So essentially, you commit a crime and you know you have 30 to 45 days where you're not being arraigned. So in that time frame, you could essentially reoffend 5 to 10 times as opposed to you being arraigned and you're going to see a judge in 2 days. So I don't know if the delay in them like starting to see a type of consequence maybe contributes to things rising. I'm not sure what the cause is of it, but it definitely allows them to reoffend quicker if that's someone that's going to do that.
So I'm wondering, are there any kind of, you know, learnings that you all have from, you know, from doing this work for so long in terms of what are some other tools that you all might have? And obviously it's a larger system than just, you know, the Burbank Police Department to address, you know, recidivism, obviously, but that could be adapted or applied or, you know, that have to, you know, can evolve given this new circumstance, right, versus the tools that you were working with before. I'm just wondering, or is there just discussion about that at the larger level of, you know, professional organizations and things like that? I'm just wondering how other departments are kind of,
Yeah.
you know, how they're grappling with this too,
I know
I'm
that's
sure.
a big priority for the district attorney in Los Angeles, but I would be guessing if I could say what types of programs he implemented to try to stop that. You know, we are just obviously trying to prevent crime and arrest people committing crimes.
I know we're just focusing on City of Burbank. I'm curious, with the 23 rearrests since October, I probably should have access to this information right away, but I don't. How many total arrests were there in City of Burbank since this went into place in October?
It was a lot. I don't remember the exact number.
So I'm thinking numbers game percentage-wise and everything. So on one hand, 23 may not be a whole lot. On the other hand, it's more of a nuisance. It sounds like, and you talked a couple other questions. Can you give us an example of some of the more serious crimes that aren't eligible for the zero bail? We were talking about like the crimes that are eligible for,
Yes.
but I just want to make sure that everybody's understanding what's not eligible for zero
So
bail.
if you commit a murder, you're going to have a bail. It's
Yeah.
going to be very high. Sex crimes, typically crimes against children, violent crimes, robberies, assault with a deadly weapon, things of that nature, those are going to be the crimes that are still eligible for bail. But like I said, for the magistrate review, let's say someone commits a felony battery, which they batter someone to a level where it rises to the level of a felony and they severely injure someone, we can do a magistrate review on that, submit it to a judge and explain why we think this person should be held likely because they're a danger to the community, and then the judge can hold them and they cannot bail out prior to arraignment.
Okay, I appreciate that. That assessment, you talked about an online risk assessment, or I think you talked about submitting it to a portal, I think
Yes.
is correct. Can you describe a little bit what that process is, just to make sure that we understand? I'm familiar with like online risk assessments. We use telehealth types of equipment, but that's
Yeah.
not this. This is a paper submission of sorts, or a
It's
record
digital.
submission.
It's
Okay.
digital. It's called the PrEP portal.
Okay.
So we submit our information through the portal, and then when a judge reviews it, they have a 6-point scale. I don't remember every single criteria, but it's typically type of crime, previous criminal history. Is this a nonviolent criminal act? Is this a violent criminal act? What they believe that person's propensity to reoffend is, and then they come up with a 6-point scale. And if you are at a 6, you are going to get held.
For those 23 rearrests, would any of those trigger the possibility of being held early? So instead of having that 45-day window before the arraignment hearing, if somebody's going out and we've heard about it in the news, where somebody goes out, they get released, and then they're committing another crime that afternoon. Is there a certain number that it may hit where just simply the repetition of crime before the arraignment may actually justify detaining and making them not eligible for the zero bail?
If you are on a cite and release or a book and release, you're given conditions, and one of those conditions is going to be that you must abide by all laws. So if you don't abide by all laws, you are in violation of your conditions, and then that would trigger us to submit it for a magistrate review. And more than likely, if you are arrested and you're cite and released, and you commit another crime during that time frame, the supervisor or whoever's working is going to submit that for a magistrate review.
Okay. How successful are those?
The success rate is pretty high.
Good. That's good to hear. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Let's go with Ann and then Mike.
I'm sorry. If someone is released, and then is the process that you then petition for a magistrate review, and they're out on the street, or are they held while waiting for that MR decision?
So they are held while waiting, and we are required to do that submission within 2 hours.
Great, thank you.
We'll go Mike Chapman, then Mike Elbin.
When you were talking about the 22, do we have any comparative numbers from prior to the new policy going into effect? Were those who did get arrested and met bail and were released, was there a repetitiveness there as well?
Honestly, that's not a question I'd be able to answer because we weren't tracking that. The focus of this was more the zero bail, as opposed to, people being arrested prior to the implementation of this reoffending.
I can understand the speed because you're
Yeah.
not available to commit any crime, but it may be a delayed recidivism happen again. If you've gone through the process and then are released, then you may be able to commit crimes again. No? So that 22 may be offset by a time period, a lag period. Just a thought. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mike, go ahead.
Thank you, Sergeant, for your presentation. I think you stated that the sergeant or watch commander has 2 hours to put it to MR review?
Yes, sir.
And what is the time frame for the magistrate to get back, make a decision?
We have to abide by a time frame. I'm not of the impression that they have to abide by a time. We have to submit it within 2 hours.
Okay, so also there's some felonies which are now book and release, things like auto theft.
A lot of the property crimes are book and release or cite and release.
All these crews on retail crime hitting the stores, that's also a book and release, right?
That's my understanding, yes.
And isn't a hit and run with personal injury also now a book and release?
I would have to look at a chart. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Layla, go ahead.
I just have one more question. Again, going back to those 23 folks, but just were there any commonalities among them or factors that could be considered in the future when deciding whether or not to do the MR review? I'm just wondering if there were things that, in hindsight now, looking at, it's not a huge sample, but 23 people, like, are there any common threads that next time somebody comes up, and fits a little bit into that, has a few of those shared factors, maybe it might be like, maybe this is somebody we would submit, and I understand there are requirements. It's not just, whatever random factors you consider, right? But just wondering if there's anything there at all, now that it's been in place for a bit, to look out for.
Well, if the person has a pretty significant criminal history, we can do a MR or a magistrate review. But if it's someone that, let's say they've never been arrested before and they commit a crime that is of a low-level offense, and then we release them and then they go do another crime, I don't know that a magistrate review would be effective, because if what we would have to articulate is how they're either a danger to the community or their criminal history, and if they have none, the magistrate isn't going to approve to hold them. But if they do have a significant criminal history and have shown that they are a danger to the community, we absolutely do a magistrate review if we get the opportunity.
Thank you. Roma, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Coombs. Sergeant, in regards to any offender that qualifies for the zero bail, is there a risk, and has there been situations where a low-level crime at that rearrest has become a high-level crime?
Yes, we have had that.
Okay, that's what I want to know.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions for Sergeant Childs? All right. So before we wrap this up, thank you, Sergeant Childs. And before we wrap this up, does anybody have any recommendations that we have for the department, or are there any outstanding questions that we have for each other about this? Thank you both for bringing this, agendizing this. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I would look forward to bringing this back in a period of time when there is data that we can analyze and compare from what's going on now to what was going on previously.
Great. And that's where we've got an upcoming agenda item where we can start to talk about some timeframes for some of the ad hoc committees, because pulling the data is something that we can get involved in as well. Okay, great.
Yeah, I would just echo what Commissioner Chapman had said. I think that's a good question as
Great.
far as, yeah.
Okay. Any other recommendations that the commissioners have? Ann, go ahead.
Benny's left, but just a thought. We talk about impact on department feelings and morale, et cetera, and I can't imagine that this doesn't affect recruiting, wanting to get people who believe very strongly in public safety. That's my other concern.
And this is something that affects all of LA County as
Right,
well.
yeah.
Yeah. Paul?
I'd agree with Ann. When we received those books prior to Election Day with pages and pages of people running for judgeships, and we don't know much about them, and then we don't pay much attention to them, this is why we need to pay attention.
Mike?
After hearing the presentation, it seems as if now I know where the term catch and release came from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Think fishing, but we can use it here too. Okay.
The result is very similar.
All right. Any other comments that folks have? Any other recommendations for the department? I really like the idea that we're gonna pursue this, and we're gonna do our own due diligence with some of the data as well. So thank you. So Sergeant Childs, I know he had to step away, but thank you, Sergeant Childs, for your presentation on that. We're gonna move on to item 3, which is presentation, discussion, and recommendations, if applicable, on the results of the biennial citywide survey conducted by the department as required under the standards of CALEA accreditation. And Lieutenant Derek Green, welcome back, Lieutenant Green.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. It's hard to believe it's been 2 years since we last discussed this very topic. As you know, we do our community surveys every other year in odd-numbered years. And yes, it's one of the standards that we adhere to under CALEA, the accreditation that we earned, believe it or not, back in 2014, so 10 years ago. But also, it also serves the purpose of strengthening our community partnerships. And that's really most important to us. It's just another form of dialogue with the community, and another way for us to seek input and feedback. So this isn't an overly scientific study. It's a community survey meant to appeal to the general audience in the city. So I'm just going to give you a very brief overview tonight of just the highlights. The actual formal report, which we kind of spruced up this time around, it's a little more contemporary. As the chief would say, it's a read and nod. It's got a lot of quick at-a-glance graphics that will help you understand the results, and that is live on our website along with the previous three surveys as well for you to reference under professional accountability. So we'll get started here with our cover photo. This is the cover that you'll see on the actual report. Again, this is geared towards community outreach, so it is under my purview in the Community Outreach Bureau. This is the longest slide, but the last survey was conducted in 2021. Similar as the previous versions, we kept it open for 5 weeks, ran from November 21st of 23 through December 26th of 2023. The instrument was available online, so a computer, tablet, cell phone, any web, mobile-enabled device, you could have accessed the survey. We added IP restriction to try to, maintain the credibility of the results. That prevents a user from going through their browser and doing repeat responses to try to skew the numbers. It's not entirely sophisticated, but it does help protect those results. We offered the survey in 5 languages this time. Previously it was 3 languages. So English, Spanish, Armenian, Chinese, Korean, and Japanese. All those languages were offered. The respondent had an option to select those a different language right out of the gate. This time we had a total of 870 responses. 202 of those were partial or incomplete. Again, the respondent has a choice to, we only had 1 mandatory question, which I'll get to in a second. But the survey was visited over 1,800 times. So this is a quick glance of the respondent breakdown as far as their relationship with the city of Burbank. Overwhelming majority, 80% identified themselves as residents, 12% identified themselves as visiting the city, and 8% identified themselves as working in the city of Burbank. We did remove gender and age this time around. That is the biggest difference. And the reason for that is it really, once we kind of roundtabled it, it really didn't, it didn't add anything for us. We really were focused on getting the demographic breakdown as far as what the relationship was in the city and jump right into their concerns. We weren't doing anything with the data related to male, female, and how old you are. This is important to us, the responses by zip code. Again, very little variance from previous surveys. Every single one we've done, the overwhelming majority has been from zip code 91505. And for those that are familiar, that is probably, I don't have the numbers, but probably the most densely populated zip code in the city and the largest. It includes the airport, it includes the majority of studios. So 91505, or I should say 05, is always the leader in responses. So the only mandatory question asks the respondent to tell us whether or not they had any contact, any direct contact with the police department in the previous 12 months. In fairness, we want a respondent to critique our services based on their experience interacting with the police department. So if you didn't have any interaction with the police department or a police officer or any employee, we don't feel that you should be able to tell us how professional and courteous we were. So of the 870 respondents, only 389 identified themselves as having direct contact with the police department. So these are the results from those 389 respondents as far as critiquing our response times, our courtesy, our professionalism, helpfulness, fairness, and our ability to address their concerns. Again, very consistent with the previous scores here. This is on a scale of 0 to 5, with 5 being the highest. So we're high 3s, low 4s across the board. The next dimension, everybody was allowed to answer this one, was based on the respondent's perception of crime in the city of Burbank. It laid out all of these that you see before you, and it asked the respondent to rate how concerning each of these were to them. Again, consistent with previous years, speeding and reckless driving was the overwhelming majority concern for respondents, followed by violent crimes, burglaries, theft, gang-related crimes, and driving under the influence. On to quality of life. So same thing. This is a perception for the respondent as to what is most concerning to them when it comes to quality of life issues. Consistent with previous surveys, the unhoused population, almost half of all respondents identified unhoused population as being the biggest concern to them in the city of Burbank. 49%, followed by traffic congestion, drugs, graffiti gang activity, loud music, parties, trash, and hardly any responses for prostitution. When it comes to safety, 65%, the overwhelming majority, said that they felt very safe or safe in the city of Burbank. 38% of those said they feel as safe or safer today than they did 5 years ago. And 62% felt that they identify themselves as less safe than they felt 5 years ago. So in comparison to 2021, our previous survey, those last two numbers there, 38% was much higher at 48%. The 62% was lower at 52%. So this dimension asked the respondent to rate their confidence in our ability to serve the public and also their level of satisfaction with the services we provide. 67% reported feeling very confident or confident in our ability to address and manage their concerns. Comparison to 2019, that's actually a typo, that should be 2021. We were at 71%, so we're still in the ballpark. And then as far as the satisfaction level, 70%, right on par with 2021. Again, I apologize for the typo, with the services we provide. There are a lot of other dimensions that were included in the survey. It was going to be too lengthy if I got into the weeds with it. So again, that formal report is available to you online. At community outreach, so this just asked the respondent to let us know about our community or our presence on social media, on the internet, and how they get information from us. Again, very consistent with prior surveys. Majority was familiar with our website, and the public said that they get most of their information from Instagram and Facebook, which is slightly different from previous. We always saw that Facebook was like the front runner. Instagram has kind of continued to climb, and I think our footprint on Instagram has certainly grown considerably over the past several years. We also asked the public to let us know what events they're familiar with, just so we can kind of get a feel for whether or not we're advertising them enough or, making mention of them enough, and if not, how can we do better? And they identified National Night Out and Coffee with a Cop as the most prominent event that we host. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have about the survey.
Thank you, Lieutenant. I suspect you're going to get a couple of questions
Sure.
about data. There was something that I don't think didn't add up there, and I saw Mike's writing something down very quickly.
Okay,
Did you want to start?
it's quite
Mike?
possible.
No.
I'll throw it in there because you were writing it down as I was noting it as well. On the slide where it talked about there was a numbers issue there. About 65% were favorable, but I think 62% were not favorable. So in one of the slides, more
So
safe
those
versus
are.
less.
So I should have been more specific. Those are actually two different questions.
Okay.
So there's a question about how safe you feel, and then there's a second question of asking you to compare your feeling of safety now as compared to 5 years ago. So I should have been more specific.
Okay.
The numbers are correct. Two different questions.
That helps in my
Yeah.
reading comprehension.
I
Probably
was trying to
got in the
be
way.
concise in the PowerPoint. So
Appreciate
yeah.
that. I appreciate that. Let me open it up. I know I've got a couple of other comments and questions, but we'll open it up. Paul, go ahead.
Thank you for a very detailed presentation. How does the perception, which is the deal with, compared to our actual data in the way of arrests and safety and things of that nature?
It's comparable. It's hard to correlate the two because, a perception is somebody's just feeling, and I'm a resident here, so I have my personal perceptions of how I feel when I'm walking my dog or taking my kids to school. But the crime data doesn't always reflect what a person's perception is. When you look at an astronomical number that 27% are concerned with violent crimes, that is a concern for everybody. Nobody wants violent crimes in their community. But do we have a significant issue with violent crime in the city of Burbank? No, we don't. Yeah. So They are different.
I guess with that exact example, like, so if the number 27, just hypothetically, was 22 5 years ago, and the reality is it's not up by 5%, it's just perception. It's whether it be the media
Right.
or whatever.
And when you read the survey instrument and the report, it's going to make a little more sense because it is specific in asking the respondent, hey, of these crime concerns, crime issues, which are most concerning to you? So if you look at it from that perspective of, are we doing enough to thwart theft, thwart violent crime? What are we doing for traffic safety? It's gauging the perception from the public so that we can improve the services we're providing.
Well, I'm just thinking of, and then I'll get off, but I'm just thinking of technology. I mean, now, if there's a traffic accident in Burbank, within a minute and a half, I feel like it's on my phone. I didn't have that 5 years ago. My perception of how often that happened wasn't the same. So I'm just thinking that part of that is just the public's access to data as opposed to reality, and that's why I was curious what the actual numbers were.
Right.
Thank you.
Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I have two questions. One is there any, it's mentioned that it's by the standards of CALEA, so they're collecting data from other departments. Is there any comparison from what our results were with other departments in other cities?
Okay, so I should be clear that the standard under CALEA is that we conduct a survey every other year. So we are checking the box for that particular standards, over 480 standards that we adhere to. This has nothing to do with providing CALEA with the actual data or results of the survey. CALEA is just mandating that we take the initiative in conducting a survey as part of our accreditation.
Okay.
We're not furnishing CALEA with any information unless they so choose to come and look at it themselves.
The second question I had is when the survey is put out, is it put out, how is it put out? Do we send a letter to all the citizens of Burbank? Do we send an email?
We send emails through several different distribution lists. We send advertisements through the city's social media, website, banners, our social media. We try to get the word out as best we can using mainstream social media and ad campaigns.
Anything on, like the newspaper? Some people don't use.
Yeah, we did not do any print advertising with this, no.
Okay. Just curious, how many people on the commission here have responded to the survey?
I was thinking the same thing. I wasn't going to out anybody, but I did respond to it.
Is it okay?
Yeah, I think people should be able to respond as they feel comfortable.
I also did respond, and I agree with, I don't think, newspaper is something that I think would have a minimal following. So I think that the avenues that where it was, I know I was provided more than one opportunity to respond. So I would venture to say that most people were.
Wait 10 years, Paul.
Yeah, I would actually also recommend pretty much anywhere possible. Understanding that it's meeting the requirement for CALEA, but it's also trying to reach out to the demographics of the community. I'd be curious to look at. You didn't collect age this year, but I'd be curious to look at age and response based on the sources that were used. Other comments that folks have. Mike, go ahead.
Well, it's only data, and data can be skewed. And I was thinking, because the number that caught my attention that I wrote down was that 62% feel less safe. But if you preceded that question with a question about what areas bother you the most, and the majority said was traffic, right? And
the
driving.
unhoused.
So that is in their mind when they're answering the next question. Do you feel less safe? I don't feel safe any longer driving, and that affects the whole survey.
Yeah. And, it's, again, I preface this by saying this isn't scientific. We're not doing focus group studies, having dialogue and in-person conversation. But it's not far-fetched to believe that some of the responses here are influenced by what's going on in society. So there is an overwhelming feeling in society that we are not safe. And I think that that is the elephant in the room. And although we are safe in the city of Burbank, society as a whole can influence a respondent's answer to that question and making them feel generally unsafe in society.
Romit, go ahead.
Lieutenant Green, thank you so much for mentioning that, because I was about to ask that question where the impression of feeling unsafe coming from, what they see on the media, what they see on TV, what they hear from their friends versus what's really happening in Burbank. So from your understanding, it seems like the perception is worse than the actual events.
But don't get me wrong, we take each response
Sure.
serious, and we address the concerns on a daily basis here, 24 hours a day. So, I'm not trying to rationalize, I'm just saying that there are.
So I'm going to go ahead and ask the question. This puts me on the spot a little bit as well. I learned the hard way probably about 10 years ago that if you leave your vehicle unlocked, it doesn't count as a break-in. It counts as a bad decision made by whoever owns that vehicle. I'm thinking specifically about the community concerns and traffic safety and speeding is critically important. We've been doing a lot of work around that. This might stray a little bit from the survey itself, so bear with me if we can go there for a minute. From the department's perspective, based on the survey, is the community focused and concerned by priority about the things that we should be focused and concerned about? For example, I know not just break-ins, but people leaving things unlocked, like I did, is a huge problem. It's a problem because when I go to the police department, there's a report being made, there's time being taken, stuff's gone. And I don't, but I don't necessarily focus on that necessarily as high a priority unless it happens to me as like the perception around street racing. So I'm wondering, based on the slide that identified what the primary concerns were, I don't know if we can go back to that slide or not, but based on the primary concerns of the department or of the community, does the department think we're focusing on what we should be focusing on in the community?
We do. And we've always said, and part of the community outreach component, and part of the reason for this is we need to work together. The police can only do so much, and we will be the driving force for all things safety and crime prevention in the city, but we need the assistance of the public. So when you give the scenario of leaving your vehicle unlocked or leaving your bag unattended in the shopping cart while you're in a grocery store,
Right.
All of these things, we're constantly pushing out educational materials, trying to educate the public and being more aware of your surroundings, be a good witness. And unfortunately, we live in a time now where you can't be trusting. You have to lock your car even though it's parked in your driveway. It's just the times we're living in. So, but yes, the concerns that each year after year, I should say every other year, are brought forth in the survey are definitely concerns of ours and things that we ourselves are focused on. It's no secret to us. None of these results are surprising to us.
Right. One other question too. It's going along that line about where the focus is at. One of the questions was that the community identified a concern about people experiencing homelessness, and is that is a significant issue. I'm aware of another department in the county that is developing its own kind of, it's a police department that's really focusing on providing social services. And so it had me concerned. I know the city council's focusing on homelessness. I know the city manager's office is focusing on this as well. In asking the question, and I apologize, I don't remember how the question was formed in the survey itself. Do you recall how the survey was, or the question was formed around the issue with the police department and people experiencing homelessness?
It was just unhoused population or
Okay.
homelessness was embedded under the quality of life concerns.
Okay. I wanted to lift that up because what I'd be really concerned about is identifying people experiencing homelessness as a law enforcement issue.
Yeah.
It's a much broader issue, and it's one of those you get what you ask for types of things.
Yeah.
So just
Right. And so something like that, I think would be best suited in its own research
Yeah.
study. It could
I
only
agree.
be 3, 4, 5 questions, but it's something that we could make its own survey to focus just on that topic.
I agree. Thank you. Paul, you had another comment?
Well, just, I think of the only recurring crime that I think people have discussed with me has been catalytic converters. And with that, if you think about it, when a catalytic converter is taken, it affects the family. But that family also goes to a shop. So now the perception continues to get multiplied. I happen to drive, I've driven in the same car for almost 20 years now, And just this year, the roof was cut to break into it at one point. Knock on wood, it's only been once in 20 years.
But you had your door locked though.
But the door was
Good.
locked, so I'd rather have in hindsight. And the bottom line is, I think some of these, when we have to go through the corrective procedures, we make the rest of the community more aware of it. And the community has done things like cages and things to help with that. So that might be a perception as opposed to something like yours, which we wouldn't have found out about if you didn't address it tonight.
Layla and then Mike.
Yeah, I guess more of a comment than a question, but yeah, just kind of building off what others had said in terms of how the, top concerns raised in the survey, how they relate to actual, crime trends and the department's priorities, and what you see as the most pressing issues. I just think it's interesting that, again, not surprising that speeding and reckless driving was the most commonly selected, right? It sounds like, but just interesting that violent crime, again, we're fortunate to live somewhere with a pretty low violent crime rate. I think like everywhere, violent crime rates are down, mostly in the country as well, even places that maybe have a higher level of crime. But, and then burglary and theft were pretty low on that list. So I'm finding that interesting because there is a lot in the media, and I mean even local media, or just on, Facebook groups, about
Right.
thefts, whether it's catalytic converter, whether it's retail,
Next
right,
door
in the
neighbor.
community, or just broader national news. And so I just highlighting that, I just find that very interesting and maybe something, and then as it relates to the zero bail conversation as well, right?
Yeah.
Because some of those would have been those zero bail or crimes covered under that now
Sure.
too, right? And the concerns about recidivism and all those things. So that was interesting to me.
Thank you. Mike, go ahead.
You also have to take into account there are people who are victims of crime who don't even bother to report it. And we have no numbers on that whatsoever. And there's a lot of people out there that we had the discussion about locking your car. A lot of people will say, no, I take everything out of the car and I leave the car unlocked so they can get in and see there's nothing there to take. So we're living in interesting times.
Ann and then Mike.
Yeah, real brief. You asked my question, Mr. McKenna, and that was the correlation between the areas of concern and crime itself. But I had a question. It mentioned 3.9% were concerned about response time, or something like that.
So that is, and it's more, it's explained better in the report. That is a rating, a 0 to 5, 5 being the best. That is them giving us a grade.
Okay, but we don't know if that grade comes from somebody who has called and then was frustrated, or people who hear it, at the store and go, oh.
Correct. It could have been, for the most part, our response times are hover around, since I've been here 20 years, 2 to 3 minute, unheard of in law enforcement. But yes, you're right. One respondent could have called us on one of our busiest nights of the year and had to wait a little longer. And that could have jaded them and caused them to again, this is an imperfect
Yes.
system.
Yep.
It's just meant to open that dialogue. It's another way for us to
Measure.
reach out to the community and gather some feedback. So, but yeah, you're absolutely.
Also, I'm not sure if the questions had, because I did not get one of the opportunities. I did not. I would have taken it. That a question, and then is each question broken down? For example, your concerns about response time, 5. It's great, 4. Is it built in with a
Yes.
grading for each question?
Yes.
Okay.
And we do we don't want it to be overly verbose. We're trying to keep it simplified because people lose interest when they have to go to like page 2, page 3. And before you know it, they're bored and done with it. They don't have all day to spend on a survey. I don't know how many survey pop-ups you've seen in your life, but I know I've closed quite a few of them and not even bothered. So the fact that we did get the responses we do get the number of responses we do is great because we do keep it rather concise.
Great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Mike, you had a comment?
Yeah, the survey mentions people who are concerned about theft, a percentage about theft, about burglary, about prostitution, whatever. How does that reflect against the numbers of reality of what we are addressing through our department. Not the perception, the arrest that we're making. Do those match up? Is theft the highest or not highest match for what our police are doing?
Well, property
response?
crimes are definitely the majority of police reports we're taking. So yes, it's reflective. And then our priority and our focus has always been on outreach to the homeless and providing sustained care through our MET team, and also traffic and safety on our roadways through enforcement, education, engineering. So it is reflective of the work we are doing, if that's your question. It's similar to the question that was asked earlier. It's not necessarily
It's pretty similar.
It's not necessarily reflective of the actual data, but property crime is the most prevalent, and it's what we take the most reports on.
And is that reflected then one other level is our department budgeting resources in response to those levels?
Yes. Yes.
But to clarify, the only concrete data that really came out of the survey, the only factual data that came out was really the number of respondents.
Yeah.
It wasn't everything else is perception based on that. So, if I want to clarify what you're asking about is the department prioritizing responses and focus based on crime data or based on public opinion?
It's important that the perception of the department be correct. You mentioned about on some of the news, crime is way up, but it may not be the case in certain areas.
Right.
And if my perspective is that my perspective may be out of line, may be crooked, may not match what is the reality. And if that's the case, then we need to focus on education to the public.
Yeah. And the same person that gave me grief about leaving my car unlocked is also the person that reminded me that people, and I appreciate the number of folks that actually interacted with the department, because people are typically interacting with law enforcement more often than not on their worst day. And that will have an impact on their perception as well sometimes.
So you mentioned resources. So a prime example, yes, almost half of everybody that responded identified homelessness as their number one concern. Case in point, the chief has been working diligently with the LA County Department of Mental Health to secure a second clinician. We have a current eligibility list of officers who are waiting to be appointed as a second MET officer to expand that MET unit to a 7-day-a-week coverage. So case in point, that's an example of how we are allocating resources to issues that we know exist and are on everybody's mind here in the city. Does that make sense?
So responding to both the concrete data and the community perception.
Correct.
I appreciate that. Paul, go ahead. You've got the last comment.
Last comment, our question, back to our perception. How many responses this year as opposed to 2 years ago?
So every year has been between 1,000 and 1,200 responses. This year, for whatever reason, we advertise it the same exact way, even to the amount of times we re-advertised it. And we were slightly below. We were below 1,000 responses. So
With expanded
we did it at the same time of year too.
social media, though. I think social media has expanded in the last 2 years.
Yeah,
so
and I thought
that's
maybe
interesting.
we got a little closer to the Christmas holiday than we did the last three, but still we were in that time of year. We've always been around Thanksgiving, so we may want to look at doing this maybe at a different quarter next time. But yeah, we also have to keep it in line with our accreditation.
Yeah. So for recommendations, I would like to just make the recommendation that that if you'd like to include reach out to members of the police commission, we may be able to help in providing some feedback. I remember when I completed the survey, I didn't complete it the first time I saw it because the first time I saw it, I thought it was a clickbait kind of a thing.
Okay.
So I just ignored it. But the second time it popped up, I looked a little bit further into it. But I'm wondering if we might be able to be of assistance to kind of help field test it before it goes out next time around.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, you did not have to finish it the first time. You could click back into it and you could finish it. So in that respect, it was incredibly user/schedule friendly.
Yes, and that was a setting on our end. It allowed you to basically save your work and come back where you left off. And we also allowed respondents to change their response after the fact.
Okay, fantastic. Any other recommendations or comments on the survey? Lieutenant Green, thank you
Thank you.
so
Good
much.
night.
Appreciate
Thank
seeing
you.
you. All right, our next item up, this is for the commission. This is item number G4. This is discussion and recommendations regarding ad hoc subcommittees, reviewing status, goals, and due dates of their specific goals. So I want to preface this. I've got a list here, and thank you, Sherry, for helping me compile this. I want to preface this with we've got some duplication, and the purpose within the different ad hoc groups, we want to clarify that the purpose of this discussion is not to go in depth on reporting out on any of the work of the ad hoc committees. We would have to actually agendize that for presentations. This is about on organizing the work, making sure that we're providing updates, what are goals of the group, and talk about some due dates to stay in compliance with an ad hoc committee that's designed to go in effect and then to sunset as well. Does that make sense? So I'm going to go ahead and read. We don't have a printout or anything for this, so I'm going to have to read out the information that I have, and if you have additional information, I don't think it's on any of the printed materials, is it? No. Okay. So there's a number of them here, and I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm counting 7, and there may be more, so we'll see if we can go through this. So the first I have is a traffic safety subcommittee, and currently that includes Romick, Paul, and myself. We have a pedestrian safety ad hoc subcommittee, which is Layla and Paul. We have a crime statistics, and Ann, I want to just preface something that I realize that I don't think we ever formally got you assigned to any of the subcommittees, so you're not going to hear your name necessarily. I know, but we want to get you plugged in as well. And also, Mike, you're going to find that your name is on most of them. So I just thought I'd point that out. So again, traffic safety, pedestrian safety, crime statistics, which is Mike Ellman and myself. Department wellness, which is Mike Ellman, Paul, and Romick. Executive subcommittee, and this one I'm going to put a little asterisk next to it because periodically I may bounce things off of Romick and Mike as the vice chair and the secretary. So it's not really an official standing subcommittee, but to stay in line with the Brown Act stuff, I may bounce stuff off of them because I can't talk to more than 2 people on the commission. Data and statistics, which is Layla, Mike Ellman, and it used to have Eva on it as well, but she's not here. And then we have the mission. This was one that was put in place 2 meetings ago when a number of us weren't present, but I'm really excited about this. That's that executive subcommittee. That's myself, Mike Ellman, and Romick. So those are the 7. Did I say 7? Yep, those are the 7 that I'm aware of. Were there any others that I missed? Any subcommittees that I missed? School safety, you're right. Thank you. Okay. And school safety is, right now, it is Ann, Paul, and Romick, right? Okay. And I also noticed, in addition to seeing Mike Ellman on the majority, on having the highest number, I also see that we're missing Mike Chapman on any of them. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and we're going to suck you in as much as we can. All right, so what I'd like to do, if those are the 8 that we have, I want to go through, if we can go through very quickly and go through each one, to basically, we want to go through what's on the agenda, and that's identifying, reviewing the status of it. Is it active? Is it inactive? What are the goals and what are the due dates of that group? And my preference would be to allow people that are on that ad hoc subcommittee to report out. We can open it up for discussion after that, but I'd like to give that ad hoc subcommittee the opportunity to identify what your specific goals are and where you're at working on. Does that make sense?
I have a specific one that covers 3, goes all 3 of them that I'm involved in. We had a wonderful meeting with the superintendent the other day.
Okay.
And one of the things that we talked about, I talked about the impact of a flyer like this. And I actually brought my printed copies to him, and he kept them. And what I thought was we need to get something like this to parents before school starts in August.
So to clarify, I want to pull it into the context of what we have to talk about right now. So we can't really be reporting out on things that we should be doing. This is really going through each individual subcommittee.
We're hoping.
But you identified 3.
Okay,
so
what I'm hoping to do,
right,
which is school safety, pedestrian safety, and traffic safety, is that we would have a list generated to every principal in May or June so that it would be available for August of what concerns they want parents to be aware of on the first day of school.
Gotcha. So we're gonna come to each one individually, because what that does is that kind of puts it on an annual
Okay.
calendar, and we really need to have, these committees need to kind of sunrise and sunset.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
That's goals, you're doing goal
Yeah,
setting, and
yeah.
we're talking more housekeeping of
Okay,
each
yeah,
subcommittee.
Yeah, it's good work. It's good work, but I want to make sure that we don't get in trouble from our council
Okay.
as we go through this process. All right. So let's go through. Well, I'm just going to work right from the top of the list. So we've got traffic safety, which is Romick, myself, and Paul. Traffic safety is the group that's putting together the flyer and what Romick shared in reporting out at the beginning of the meeting. And again, Paul, you were making reference to it as well. We need to take a look at what are the goals of this group, and when is this group going to conclude. So it sounds like that there's information that we want to have out at the beginning of by the beginning of the school year. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe it's on the agenda for either July or August, and by that time, school's already back and it's too late.
Okay.
So at that point in time, I feel like we, the three of us, need to be reporting to you what we did, not what we want to do.
Mike, go ahead.
I have a question for our city attorney. Explain the difference between a subcommittee and an ad hoc committee.
There's no difference there. It's the ad hoc committee and a standing committee, which is, some of these groups were getting close to a standing committee
Yeah.
because it looks like they were created back in November of 2022.
Right.
When you get to the year mark, we're looking at a long-standing committee to where it becomes concerning with regards to the Brown Act. So sunsetting some of these at some point is a good idea for you guys to figure out today. But
Yeah.
no difference between the ad hoc and I forgot what you had mentioned initially.
I know when we voted on the establishment of ad hoc committees, the main reason I supported it was they get to to get themselves up a job. They kill their work. So it doesn't go on forever. I wanted a sunset to it, and I hope it
Yep.
happens.
That's the goal. So what I'm going to recommend is if the goal is to have the information out, and this is for the Traffic Safety Committee, if the goal is to have the information out to the community, can we recommend, does it by the beginning of the school year make sense because we'll have completed the work then and the information goes out, or?
You've actually, it's exactly, I was thinking that the school safety subcommittee should almost be something that runs school year to school year.
But we're talking about traffic subcommittee right now,
Okay.
or traffic ad hoc committee. So we're gonna get to the school.
Okay.
We're gonna get to the school safety one, but right now we're focusing specifically on the traffic subcommittee.
I agree.
I think the goal should be the release of the information out to the public, and I think that should be the concluding role of the police commission, because we're out there sharing that information. And then could we come back maybe a year from now and develop an updated report on how it's gone or anything like that?
We could agendize anything
Okay.
as long as we're
Okay.
as long as we're going
So
through the
I-
agenda process. Yeah.
So I think that releasing that information out to the public would possibly conclude the.
So Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking that the committee, say, completes their work, say, end of July, prior to the school year starting. Then, around October, November, the school year has already started. We can examine the results and decide if it's needed, this committee is
Right.
needed again or not needed.
Do we, technical question, Sherry, do we know if there are any upcoming trainings this year? Because sometimes August, we vote for the commission leadership, but I'm wondering, sometimes we've had trainings that have taken up the meeting. Do you know of anything off the top of your head that's coming? Okay, so we've got time. So, no, yeah, no, we need to behave so we don't have to have a Brown Act training. That's the goal.
Nothing I'm aware of at this point. I think we may have a conflict of interest training at some point, but I don't know if it's going to extend to the commissioners.
Okay, all right, thank you. So to kind of put into context what you're describing, Mike, the group can complete its work end of July with the hope that maybe they can report out in August. That's why I was asking if there's anything that we know of that's already on the agenda for August. Does that sound reasonable, Mike?
It sounds reasonable. I would like that the when they do their report out, that also is their sunset.
Yeah, yeah. So what I'm
Right.
hearing, I'm appreciating you
Yeah.
say about getting the work done by the end of July, so that way we can
Yeah.
report out in
I'm
August.
just saying that
Okay.
because we all know school's going to start again by end of
Right.
August. So
Okay.
we want to get it done before that happens. And I think if by November, by Halloween,
Okay.
we get to decide if it's worth
Okay.
recreating that committee or not.
Okay.
We have results.
I mean, we don't have to formally vote on it, but are folks comfortable with August 2024 to sunset the Traffic Safety Committee?
Yeah, and I wouldn't defer to folks who are maybe more involved with the administration of the district, although I do have kids in the district, but so school in Burbank, it starts ever earlier each year. It'll be August 12th, so just
Okay.
putting that on people's radar that it's
Okay.
very early. And I'm sure the district is very busy in those
Okay.
weeks leading up, so just
Yep.
if we want them to, distribute something, we just want to build in
Yeah.
a lot of lead time for them.
Okay.
So we don't, yeah.
Paul?
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, call me James.
I agree with what you're saying, and even want to take it one step further maybe at the change of leadership, we should, everything should sunset, and then we renew.
Let's go through each one, just to make sure. I don't want to make that assumption for
But
everybody.
I'm just thinking that
I hear you.
that might be a timely
It's a possibility.
time for reassessing.
That's a possibility. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're okay with August to sunset the traffic safety ad hoc work group. Great. And we've got some goals, things that we're working out on that. Pedestrian safety. That is Layla and Paul.
Yes. So we have the next agenda item, which is working towards the goal of the committee, right? So we wanted to take a deeper look into pedestrian active transportation safety in Burbank, and then hopefully, share some findings and or recommendations, with the group, with the department, and with the city and so forth. So, so that is still underway, but, so we'll see what happens with the next agenda item if it gets approved.
Okay.
But that's in progress.
Is it possible? Let's put a far out end date as to when that would happen. So it can be done before that and everything. But do both of you have a recommendation on when it
Well,
should end?
It a little bit depends on what, if it's approved and then if the department is able, provide the data and how long, of a lead time, because, they have a lot of things, other things going on as well. But maybe we could say 6 months from now, and that might be a good buffer. If 6 months from when the data, if it's approved today, then 6 months from today.
Gotcha.
In
So
other words, is that
would you be comfortable in naming 6 months from today? Right now?
yeah, sure.
Does that work out? So what that does, now the department's not allowed to say that there's delays on data, which then pushes that out and then sunsets the group. I don't think they would do that to us. But let's go ahead. So the recommendation, this is April, so this would be, if I'm doing the math right, October?
Yeah,
Does that sound reasonable?
or to me.
Okay, so that sound okay, folks?
Yeah.
Mike?
Even if we.
Yeah.
I wonder if we could collect this data and put it into a spreadsheet, present that at each meeting so we can see the changes that are going along.
We'll definitely, yeah. What I'll do is I will make a commitment to work with Sherry on that, to report out, to create, based on this discussion item, we'll include something in the minutes from this meeting that lays out what decisions we're making.
And our focus was when the original question was raised, or motion was raised, what direction that group is going towards.
Say that again for me.
When the discussion originally came up to create the committee,
Right.
it was for the purpose, and we can't just keep
Yeah.
changing the purpose. We need to go back to what the original.
I agree, and I'm also aware that, I agree, and I'm also aware that even after we started establishing, because I remember a lot of discussion around how we're supposed to do ad hoc committees, and so I'm not entirely confident that we had that level of clarity when they were established in the first place. I'd like to think that there is, but there's been a little bit of scope creep and everything. So I'm comfortable with setting a closing date for that and everything, and then they're working towards that. But I hear you and I agree with that. Does that work? So we're looking at October of 2024 for the pedestrian safety work group. Okay. All right. Next one we've got is crime statistics. That is Mike Ellman and myself. Mike, I'm going to let you take the lead on this one.
I don't think we've met, have we?
We have not met. Oh, that's all the comment?
I'm writing, excuse me.
All right. So one of the things, we haven't met, but you and I have had some discussions about the data that's available on the website. And I know there have been some questions and concerns about, is all of the data there that we would want access to? Does that ring a bell at all?
Yes, it does.
Go for it.
Well, I would like to see that, that there is data on the website that will be posted like previous to our meeting, so that if the public is aware of the statistics, as we are, and if they have any concerns, they have the right to come and address us on it. So I would like to see that basically the same information that's being tracked today by the department just goes online, the website, and it's available to the public and this commission, and we can discuss it.
So there's making sure that the data that gets reported in a meeting, make sure it gets on the website. And I'm also hearing the first piece you said is make sure that the data's on there before the meeting so the public can comment on it as well.
Exactly.
So what that would involve is that would involve you and I reviewing, and there's room, by the way, I forgot to mention on the pedestrian safety, there's only 2 people on there. So Ann, if you're interested in that, you're allowed to jump in wherever you want to. Mike as well, by the way. But there's room for one more person on this crime statistics piece. But it sounds like I just wrote down we're making sure that data's on the website prior to meetings and that the public can address the concerns during the public comment period. Those are 2 real concrete goals that we've got for the group.
Just a quick clarification. Are you saying, like, for example, so there was a presentation about zero bail. Are you meaning that information would be available? Or do you mean each month there should be like a standard
Number of
crime
arrests,
report? So you're talking
the
about a
basic
standard
stuff that is already
monthly
being-
crime report that's updated every month. I just want it, because that sounds like something that we would be asking the department to do, that you're not saying that
We're not
the
asking the
commission
department to
would
do
be producing.
anything.
So real quick, I'm
extra
going
that they're not
to
doing.
cut you both off for a second. This is actually in the interest of technology. Because they do the transcription and everything, let's try not to talk over each other, or else it's really, really hard for them to get
sorry.
that piece. So Layla, go ahead and finish your thought.
I just wanted to clarify about whether it was relating to data and presentations we're receiving here, or if what Commissioner Elman was saying was he would like to see a monthly crime report of the same whatever many stats updated each month on the website, because that second one, I mean, both of them are things we would be asking the department to do, so I'm not sure if we need a subcommittee of us.
We're not doing a
those.
subcommittee of a subcommittee.
Well, no, but I'm saying, I don't know if we even need, like, what is our subcommittee doing other than we would just be making that ask to the department, and then, just a question of like their capacity to do, particularly the second thing, right, with the monthly report of, updated.
So Mike, it sounds like Layla's asking, are you talking about like a dashboard?
It'd be a dashboard very similar to Sergeant Stone's newsletter, where he posts some statistics.
Okay.
And I'm just saying, don't ask the department to do any more than what they're already doing.
Okay.
Just make it available.
So it sounds like you and I are going to get together to focus on a basic dashboard that's readily available, readily updated. This is something that we can work with the department on as the ad hoc committee, and then we want to report out when that's all done. What's the time frame, do you think?
I think we should be able to get it done maybe in 3-4 months' time.
3-4 months, so 3 months, April, May, June, July?
Yeah.
Is that reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay. Does that work for folks? July is a sunset date for that group?
Yeah, I guess I would just check with the department on that, because I being a data person, it's like, I would just like put up the numbers every month, like, it's a lot goes into it to run the
Right.
numbers and update it and make it presentable and check
So-
it and all those things. So I don't, it may be, we're biting off more than we think we are. I
So
would just check with the.
I would hesitate to check with the department because these are ad hoc groups and it's the work of the commissioners themselves. And so I don't want to make the work of the commissioners obligate the department to, does that make sense? The work of, if we're reviewing the website, looking what's available, that's on us to do that. And then we can have those conversations with the department. But to obligate the department to additional reporting right now, I think that's outside of what we would want to do at this subcommittee.
Right, so that's what because that's what it sounds like to me,
Okay.
so I just must not be.
Okay.
clear
Okay.
on it, so never mind. It's
So-
just, that's what it was starting to sound like, and I was like, that's kind of a big item.
Sounds good. So July 2024? Okay.
And if I may just briefly, is it a feasibility study on whether that can be achieved, or is it what sort of data that will be compiled on the website, and what website are we speaking of specifically?
I'm hearing the department posts statistics and crime statistics already. And if I recall correctly, Mike wanted to make sure that there was a dashboard, a readily accessible dashboard that can be reviewed month after month, to clarify that we can have the public make public comment on it. The commissioners may make responses to it as well. Obviously, we would have to agendize if we're going to discuss it and everything. But it's not as much having the department pull new information as much as it is reviewing what information is already existing and possibly making recommendations on what should be on said dashboard. Did I get that right?
envision it could be something as easy as just a link to the existing information, not redesigning something, just linking to something.
And that's a link on the agenda for each meeting to that website.
It would be an I guess that's something for the subcommittee to discuss, actually, because it could be that. But we do, regardless whether it's a link on the agenda or it's just readily available public information that people can just go to the Burbank Police Department's website and get it. Yeah, that's what I figured. So
It is. Can I weigh in?
Sure.
We are in the process of redesigning our website. So this may be an opportunity for the commission to provide input to, like, Derek Green's staff, if we're able to, could we consider some of the stuff that you're talking about?
Okay.
But I'm navigating the website right now. All that stuff's on there. You can go to NIBRS. I mean, it's on there, and it's user-friendly. And the new website design will make it even more user-friendly.
Right.
So if there's, you may want to consider maybe having some input as far as how that, what information would be on there if we're missing something.
Is there a time frame for updating the website?
So, of course, I'll let Derek go. Steve Turner.
We're in the throes of it now.
Yeah, Steve, why don't you
Thank you.
give him a timeline, if you can.
Sergeant Turner, thank you.
Good evening. It's the same company that the city utilized to update their website. They're currently updating the police and fire one right now. We're in the throes of it right now. We're looking to get it launched probably sometime this summer. So send me an email or anything of some of your some ideas that you have. To the chief's point, we have all that information. I personally update that information on our website every month as far as our crime statistics and NIBRS, as well as our traffic information. And it can be compared and contrast or however you want to do it. But if you want to see if we can we're trying to clean it up a little bit. Not so many 300 different links and 20 different windows. So maybe somehow link it through our police commission side on it.
So we don't get scope creep on this. It sounds like what we may want to do is we may want to review what's available now. The subcommittee have a conversation with you to discuss what we'd like to see up there, and then we're going to report out on that. I'm concerned about some scope creep here and this, like, continuing on an ongoing basis, and that's kind of a problem for the ad hoc committee, and it becomes a problem for the department because you don't want us. If we need to agendize something in the future and address it, we can do that, but you don't want us to have a small group that's constantly chasing you. And something you mentioned a moment ago, I just want to emphasize, you mentioned about just send you an email to get information. We don't want to do that because we don't want to bury you. We could, but we don't want to do that.
When it pertains to the website design, I think right now would be appropriate for you to email me. It's no problem. I'm okay getting buried.
Okay.
But I do highly recommend that each one of you look at our website, and see how it's designed right now.
Okay.
Because I get the crime statistics from our crime analyst, I get our traffic statistics from our traffic lieutenant, and those are put up there.
Okay.
So,
So
but maybe, from what I understand, maybe there could be some link to the police commission side on our future website.
So Mike, Layla, and then I have a thought. Go ahead.
I was just thinking of maybe we should postpone our work until the police department completes their new website. And then we'll have a clearer picture of what we want to do, because we don't know. At this moment, the new website might address all our concerns.
Okay. Leila? So I'm going to make a recommendation that we go ahead and sunset that committee now, and that if we can then add it back later on, we can then agendize it again in the future. If that, so let's just, my recommendation is that we make it go away right now.
As your fellow committee member, I will agree with you.
All right, let's make it a little bit more formal. Is everybody okay with that? Sunsetting the data, the crime, I'm sorry, specifically the crime statistics ad hoc committee. Nixing that? Good. Any opposition to that? Okay. It'd be cruel if you made us keep doing that. All right. So we're knocking that one out. Cool. Thank you, Sergeant Turner.
That's it.
All right. The next one that we have, Department Wellness. This is Mike Ellman, Paul, and Romick.
I know that we haven't met yet on this, and I'm okay with sunsetting it because I don't know if we are going to have that conversation, or do you guys want to do that? Like,
Well, it's okay with me to sunset it. I do think that the presentation we had on the wellness group was probably about 7, 8 months ago.
okay.
So I would like to see it come back maybe in 4 months' time, but that's something we can put on the agenda.
That's a presentation, not a subcommittee.
Right.
I vote, that's a 3-0 vote on, 3-0 vote on sunsetting it.
So we're going to go, okay.
Yeah, I think that that's already been handled by the department very well.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and sunset the Department Wellness ad hoc subcommittee. This is great. Then we have the next one. It is data and statistics, and this is Leila and Mike. Leila, you are on.
Okay, so this one, our goal was to formalize a process to request data from the department, so that we can do our own research and analysis and, look at things and try to come up with recommendations. So I had the conversations with Captain Cremens. It was super helpful to create the guidelines and sort of a form for us to fill out. So we're making sure that we're giving them all the information they need in order to respond in an efficient way. And also, the commission itself agreed upon, kind of a workflow of a subcommittee, or I suppose an individual member of the commission could put together a data request. They'll bring it to the commission, we'll agendize it, we'll discuss it, we'll either vote to move forward, with submitting that to the department or not. So we all agreed on that process and the form. So as you'll see, the next agenda item is our first use case. So with that said, I believe that subcommittee has accomplished the goal, and we can sunset
Sunset
that
data and
subcommittee.
statistics.
Yes.
All right. We're doing pretty well here. All right. Then let's see. There is two more. There is it's the mission. It's the mission of the. It's the mission statement, which includes the California or the League of Cities training that we attended. Some of us attended this, looking at the history of issues around racism and anti-racism in institutions. Some of us attended an online training about that, and the goal was to have myself, Mike, and Romick look at developing a mission statement that goes a little bit beyond just kind of what the statement is in the city charter and the city code around the police commission. So it's kind of a development of a mission. We also went through a training about this, I think it was last summer. Was it last summer or was it 2 summers ago? It's been a minute. It was last summer. And this was about how we develop a mission statement. This was a training that actually all of the city's commissions and boards went through. So this subcommittee is specifically tasked with developing, in essence, a mission and vision statement for the police commission. And this is something that will be a little time intensive, but I'd like to set a specific time frame on this as to when we could get this done as well. I would actually like to recommend that we sunset this one in August, and that we get the work done in that, specifically because Paul had mentioned about the elections for new leadership, and this is something that we can kind of move into that with.
I also think that that's something that should be correlated with the National Civilian Oversight Training, because that is like 90% of what that seminar is about. And as you and I discussed when I first got back, that and basically understanding the trauma and the other aspects of police work that the average person isn't sensitive to, for lack of better,
Okay.
whether both on both sides of the situation.
Okay, so this will incorporate the vision training, the League of Cities training, and NACOL training that we've received. Okay. All right, so how does a August deadline, August sunset for that sound? And then the goal would be to report out on that at the August meeting. So August work for a sunset? This is for Mike and Romick. You okay with that, Mike?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, I mean, since we've never met.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how do we say,
Well,
we'll have it done even
it's
though we haven't met?
Ride or die,
Yeah.
ride or die. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so August
We'll
24.
wing it.
Perfect. Last one we have is the school ad hoc subcommittee, which is Ann, Paul, and Romick. Go ahead, Ann.
I don't think we're ready to sunset, and I certainly, it almost seems like it's a year-round event. It's getting ready for school, as we've seen with some of the issues, parking, valet, et cetera, and that certainly will need to be looked at then and revised after school starts. We also have ongoing concerns about safety. There's also some matters that the city council is working with the school board on. I don't see an end date at this point unless it's like the end of the year.
So, go ahead, Paul, and then I've got to.
I agree 100%, but in making it a temporary committee, it doesn't mean it can't be, I don't want to say revamped, but renewed on a school year basis.
So, this is going to go to council. Let me throw this out there. The purpose of an ad hoc subcommittee is to focus on a specific goal, specific task. It's supposed to be time limited. They will then be reporting back. That's the goal, because we're not supposed to have standing committees that do this work. All of the commissioners are civilians who are appointed by the city council to this body. We know, as we talked about with myself, Romick, and Mike, as the quote unquote executive, whatever of this group, I will periodically reach out to them because I can't reach out to more than 2 people. So when we're talking about communications, emails, staying in compliance with the Brown Act, are there any restrictions on civilians or citizens regularly meeting with leadership within the Burbank School District?
Non-commissioners?
No, even commissioners. Commissioners as citizens and civilians.
It's going to be a difficult distinction to make if you are a sitting commissioner on a board, to just say that you are a citizen trying to meet with the school board. I think that's going to be a hard distinction to make.
Okay.
So I wouldn't advise that at this point. I think
Okay.
obviously any citizen can meet with the school board, discuss issues that are of concern, but if you're a sitting commissioner, I don't believe that would be appropriate on an ongoing basis, or even as like if it's a group of, let's say this board
Right.
meets with the school board, it would trigger a potential Brown Act issue.
Okay. I don't want to drag this out right now, but I'm also thinking about the roles of liaisons as well. That are we allowed? I mean, just the same way the city council has 2 liaisons to this group, are we allowed to have liaisons to the school district or to leadership in the school district?
Well, I think so council has that already in place.
Okay.
And so I'm not sure that that's the purpose of this board.
Okay.
Specifically. If there is, obviously, I think school safety would potentially fall under your purview for the police commission. But I think it's better to address it as an ad hoc with a specific issue that you will be dealing with rather than general school safety.
Okay.
So let's say for this year period, we can address the end of school and then the start of school. If there's a specific issue that you want to address with regards to school safety, let's make that the point of this ad hoc committee for this year. And then if there's additional standing concerns for the school board or for public safety with regards to school, we can have that issue addressed at a future meeting date. But I think the idea should be, and we should stick to this plan, is a specific issue with regards to public safety in regards to school, and then sunset that portion of the ad hoc committee, and then we can reestablish a new ad hoc committee
Okay.
with regards to a different public safety concern for the school district.
So I missed, last month, I should have named March 4th as an appropriate day for marching band folks, but it sounds like we have marching orders to March 4th with the work of the ad hoc committee to work with the superintendent. Is that committee comfortable with setting a specific date to end those conversations that you're having? Yeah? When would that be?
Well, for the school, I mean, it could be for this school year.
Well, as the point that we've been making, anything done after August is a moot point because the school year is up and running. So
Okay.
August would be the time for us to wrap up what we've accomplished and to request whether or not we want to do anything follow
Okay.
on.
Wrap up or report out?
Report out and
Okay.
determine whether or not something else is necessary.
Okay. Layla?
I was just going to say I think Ann, you had mentioned earlier you had mentioned like October maybe in the sense of the school year started, people are in their routines and all that. So if I don't know what the exact topics of conversation were, but I think probably some of them relates to like the school drop off and pickup and safety around that, and, planning for that now, right? And trying to work on that in advance, but then would it make sense for the committee to stay together until October to have a check-in with the district at when school
That's a
started
valid
and then
point.
sunset with a presentation about that, and then we can decide.
August 21st is the August meeting for us.
Okay.
So that's a little early
Would-
with the school year.
So September? Well, actually, September is going to be the joint meeting with the city council, so it won't be
That
September.
puts it in October 16th.
Is that too far out
No, I think by then
Uh,
the people have their feet on the ground. I'm
for
sorry.
council? Sorry.
No, I don't think so. If there's a specific purpose and we are intending to present out to the commission as well as the community on
Okay.
the concerns.
Okay.
Thank you.
So everybody's okay with October 24?
Not trying to put a fly in the ointment, but the only reason August would be more appropriate would be so that you could include in your presentation to council in September.
Oh,
So, just a thought.
that's a really good point.
But you could still report about the
Status.
prep work, right? And the
But it'd be so much cleaner.
things that were implemented versus, sort
Yeah.
of an assessment of like, how did it go?
Well, we can always, if there's a specific need or a specific issue, we can always establish a new ad hoc committee to address that. But I'm appreciating the August piece to clean up so we can report it out in September.
I forgot about the joint meeting in September. That becomes a great opportunity to wrap up a lot of these, put a bow on a lot of these things.
Okay, so, everybody else is okay with August 24? Okay. Wow, that was a lot less painful than I thought it would be.
I need a goal so that you didn't specify
Oh,
what
you're
your
right.
goal is.
So what are the specific, what are the specific goals for the school subcommittee? Thank you, Sherry.
Well, first of all, you can only make goals that you can control. So I think my first goal would be that we have, in some way, shape, or form, made electronic communication with every school's principal.
Okay.
And then responded to all those that responded to us. That's all we can ask for. Because if of the 18 schools, which I'm guessing that's the number, Ann might be able to correct me, but say if 6 respond, then they'll get all our attention.
Okay.
And then hopefully we'll put in some fanfare that what we did for them, and the next year more principals will respond.
Okay.
But we may have to earn that trust.
Was there also something about school the drop-offs in that discussion, wrapping up that discussion?
That's exactly what we were talking about. It was that, what had happened was, prior to COVID, almost every school had a valet parking system.
Remember that we can't go too far into the
Okay, I'm
reporting
just
right
saying,
now.
but that stopped because of COVID.
Okay.
And then during the COVID period, almost half our principals were changed.
Right. Okay.
So it was with the recommendation of the three of us speaking to the superintendent that has now been reinstated, and now we'll get a status report.
Great. So school drop-offs. Great. Mike?
Yeah, it's just asked, what is the goal? Is it meeting with the principals or is it the school drop-offs?
School safety.
Well, that's very
That's the
broad.
topic. That's the general topic.
Yeah, but the safety of the drop-off, because every drop-off takes place at the same time.
So-
At the end of the day, it's more spread out. But the drop-off in the morning is where we have
So the dropping
Concerns.
off students at school.
Yeah.
Yes.
So two specific goals I heard then are electronic communications with each principal
Yes.
and addressing the school drop-off programs at each one of the schools.
In that communication.
Okay. Any other goals for that group? In August. All right. Does that work for everybody? Yes. Okay, great. Fantastic. We made it through that item. Thank you all. We're moving on to item number 5. This is the report, discussion, and recommendations on the proposed data request by the Pedestrian Safety Ad Hoc Subcommittee regarding pedestrian and active transportation users' traffic safety outcomes in the city. That's a lot, but everybody's hopefully got a copy of that in front of them as well. Okay, go for it.
Okay.
Thank you,
So,
Leila.
this was crafted by your Pedestrian Safety Ad Hoc Subcommittee, using our, approved form. And so, you can see it's filled out with the dates and the contact information, all of that. And then the purpose for the data request, it's not a full, research plan, because that's not what's, meant to be. But the idea basically is to get data for the past few years, that's specified here, 2020 to 2024, around pedestrian and active transportation users, traffic safety outcomes in Burbank, right? So that's like injuries and fatalities related to those types of transportation, and especially in relation to vehicles. And then the idea is to calculate some summary statistics, year on year, and see how things have changed, as well as just kind of overall, number of people who were injured or killed in these types of traffic incidents, or looking at it, broken down by age, right? And maybe folks in certain age groups, and we could surmise whether it's, if it's young people, unfortunately, maybe it's relating to schools and we need to focus there. Maybe it's not, maybe it's an even spread and it's really an issue everywhere, those kinds of things, right? Who's more likely to be injured in these type of incidents? And that can also point to education, right? Where to focus the education as well as any enforcement, things like that. And then looking at it, geographically, right? Are there certain areas, intersections, blocks, or places where there are kind of hotspots, right, for these type of injuries and fatalities, right? So those would be something else to look at. And in addition to certain times of day or days of the week, right? Are these things happening late at night when visibility is bad? Or maybe is it, the school drop-off time, or when is it, right? And where is it happening? And yeah, so then hoping to just, look through the data in these ways and others, and to use that research to bring some recommendations to the commission, and then decide if those are things that we would want to then share with, the department and or, council at that point. And yeah, so, and I'm sure that the department is doing, their own analysis and looking at these things as they're going. They're not just, blindly kind of approaching things, but also knowing that they do have a lot on their plates, and, and it, that this would be maybe a different perspective, and also just maybe we have, we have maybe that time to look into this versus they have, a lot of different pressing things they're trying to address at once, and not have the time to do, this type of a deep dive in this type of format.
Thank you for that. So I want to start my comment with you've been on the commission. We've both been on the commission for 3 years now, and you've got a particularly strong interest, passion, and drive around analytics and pulling data and making sure that good data is being pulled. So this has actually been a 3-year passion of yours. So I appreciate the energy you put into it. And I want to specifically lift up, there's a couple of things that are significant here. One is that we wanted to make sure that there was a uniform way to request data from the department. So I also want to thank Captain Cremens for your work on this as well, because I know that there's been a lot of going back and forth to make sure that and this is information that we really don't orient people to, but we want to make sure that we're not bombarding the police department with a whole bunch of information, additional work, just to then continue to add on and continue to do that over and over again. So the request form itself from this group is significant. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate the work, again, that both you and Captain Cremens put into that. The second is it's like I want to give personally. I want to support this because I want to give you the freedom to fly with this because we may end up in a major crime if we don't give you permission. You may want to kill some of us. So the passion is definitely there, and I want to give you the freedom and the space to run with this in a way that we've structured. So I just really appreciate your persistence and dedication on this. So I wanted to name all of that, and I'm supportive of approving the ask.
Thank you. And I want to say, yes, I do personally have a passion, people are strange, a passion for data. But also we could see from that survey, for example, and from folks who have made public comment, right, that traffic safety, pedestrian safety is a big concern for folks in Burbank. And I know the department talks about it a lot, does the education, does the enforcement, all those things. So this is something top of mind for folks and across the board, I think.
Yeah.
So I think it's important
So there's
to
a
be
two
responsive.
there's a two for going on about requesting data and then this specific data. Paul?
I'm going to preface this by saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, and this goes back to my time on the Traffic Commission, I don't think there's many cities with blinking yellow lights. And when people pull off and if you live in Burbank, you know that there's a blinking, yellow arrow. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that, the left turn arrow. If you ask a normal person, what do you do at a yellow light? You speed up and you get through it. If that's a left arrow, that's an accident, or that's a pedestrian fatality. And I would be curious as to how many of these intersections if that was a factor. If it's something that is just Paul's imagination, that'd be great. But it's a concern. I think people who live in Burbank know them, know how to understand, know how to navigate them. But people get off our freeways and get faced with them for the first time, and if they misinterpret it, then we have the accident. And I would be curious if statistically, and you're the person for the job, if that was something, any indication, and I would be loved to be told no. So
go ahead, Leila.
I was going to say, yeah, those are the kind of things that we could look at, and I'm not sure whether the, department may require an additional data request in terms of identifying which of those intersections are, but I think we could identify the intersections, and then Burbank's not that big of a place. We could, could just go to that intersection and see what the traffic situation is there. But I think also response to that being a newish development, and also the, jaywalking changes that happened, right? And that was something else that's coming up. So, being able to look over the past few years and see, what kind of the result of that is, and then Vision Zero and all those things, right? So I think it ties into a lot of things we've been talking about.
And just a sidebar, short, I would be curious to know if within the DMV, are there questions, are there information, especially for young kids who are taking their permit, is there information on what a blinking yellow arrow is?
So to clarify, this is a data request for the city of Burbank.
Yeah,
So what you're describing, though, we can go with this. What you're describing is this is something that we as commissioners could pursue that information ourselves. We don't have to ask the department for permission to research that, but that could be so there's data that's being asked of the department, and then we can supplement that with our own research as well. Correct. Great. Great. Okay, Mike?
Thank you. Under the data that is needed, you're asking questions about gender and race and ethnicity.
Age and gender.
I don't see race.
Yeah, I don't see race.
I see
You have
it.
race on yours? No, that's in the question in the
Yeah.
top. The box is what she's asking
Okay,
for.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Anyways, is that going to be of the, let's see, okay, it's answered, thank you.
Great.
I was reading the top part, I got a staple over it, so it was hard.
Great. Any other questions or comments about the data request?
I think I'd like to hear some response from the department.
About the data request itself?
Yeah, if that fits with what they can do.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this particular data request and the questionnaire itself was developed in partnership with the department. Is that correct? Is that the correct understanding?
More so the form, because I think we had had this discussion a long time ago about
Okay.
whether it's like the chicken or the egg, and the decision was we should decide we want to pursue it, and then present it to the, submit
Right.
it to the department, and then they can say, yes, this part, not that part, or yes, everything, or no, or, that was kind of the order
Okay.
of operations we had.
What I'm bringing
Okay.
to mind, I think there was a little bit of pushback, not overly, but they were concerned about the time that was involved in.
Right, right.
So if I can weigh in, there was pushback, and there's hard pushback because it's additional work. We do have data. We look at we have a weekly traffic report that addressed the commissioner's, most of her questions. To take additional time to cut out and format for just the police commission would be another burden.
Right.
So, let me ask if I can buy some time to talk to Fromer and Cornelius to see what is doable so that we can make sure that information that's above and beyond that's already posted on the website
Right.
is doable without burdening the department. So I want to asterisk everything. So we'll go back to the survey that Lieutenant Green presented on, and some of the discussion here is that the online complaints that I get is either related to traffic or parking. So, not crime, traffic or parking. It dominates the complaints. So, how we can make all of this work for your commission and for us to be able to address that community priority as far as traffic.
Okay.
And we have a personalized response to everyone that complains.
Okay. So I'm wondering for this ask, it's because what we're doing is we're basically taking the data request form for a test drive. And so if I'm reading this correctly, this is a request, not a demand, and that the department can respond in that way about what it feels like it looks like a mechanism has been created to allow the commission to ask for specific data. And what I'm suggesting is that we allow this to go forward as a test drive, and that we get response back. So the things that you're describing about what's reasonable, what's not reasonable, that could actually be part of the department's response. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
I think the chief just told us the data is already there. We just have to reformat it to the way we want it. And maybe Captain Cornell, that's something
Yeah.
we can ask him but it sounds to me like 90% of the work is done. We just have to format it differently.
Well, yeah, I don't know about 90%. That's what I'm concerned about.
Right.
It may be 70%, and Commissioner Ferenzen may see some things that would be helpful for her that would create time to do the research.
Right.
And that's the pushback, and that's going to be the pushback for me, because they are overwhelmed
Right.
right now.
Right.
Not only with traffic education enforcement, but with extraordinary deployments. So that's where we're at. I think we can find middle ground. So we'll go with what you said earlier, and it
It's a
does
test
make
drive.
sense. And if it's too much of an organizational burden, we'll share it with the
And
commission.
let's get that feedback as well. I'm open to it, because this is it's been a long road to get to this point, and to be able to structure those data requests, I think are critically important. And then also, again, this is something we scratched it from earlier, but we also all have the ability to look, and it's really, we have the responsibility to take a look at the website to see what's available right now. And also, Sergeant Turner specifically asked us to send any recommendations that we have for the website as well. So I'm comfortable with the data request going forward, understanding that we may not necessarily get everything, and this is new territory for all of us that Layla's been working really hard on. Any other thoughts on it?
Mr. Chair, I wonder if we could include, I'm going back to purpose.
Very formal. Go ahead.
Going back to purpose, I
Yep.
think it would be good to include in our request documents the source of our authority to be asking all the questions. With the original motion, what was the plan to do?
Okay. So there's two.
And we have it now, I think, in our.
Yeah, we may have it, and also we have the form itself. Keeping in mind that the form itself was created by Captain Cremens and Layla in partnership with each other. So there's two. When I mentioned a twofer, the two things that are going on is one, the actual implementation of a data request, and the form itself, which she's accomplished, and then the second is the specific data ask that the department will then need to respond to, which maybe they can't provide the data, or the data is available in another location, or whatever that may be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And you got, Romit, go ahead.
Just, I would say maybe possibly a critical question. What's going to be driving traffic to the form? Is that going to be something that's going to be publicized through the PIO, or?
For other people to generate this? This is
Yeah,
actually
people-
a Burbank Police Commission data
Oh, got
request
it,
form.
got it. Never mind.
Yeah, this is, this is not going, they would kill us if this went to the public, so.
I mean, people can do like last week we talked, or
Public
not last week,
communication
last
Yeah,
month,
yeah,
the public
yeah,
information.
Yeah, this is
We just have a-
specifically, yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I was talking over folks when I said don't talk over folks, so.
Let me talk over you. So I'm looking on my phone as far as our website, and we probably could do a better job as far as traffic stats. So again, this would be a good opportunity with coordinating with Sergeant Turner as they develop the website as far as doing a better job as far as posting that data. There really hasn't been an interest or a request for that, but if we do provide it, it may spur some interest.
Yeah.
So that's what I would encourage you to do.
All right, any other comment or thought? All right, so what we need to do is we actually need to vote on the approval of this data request that will go to the department, so.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve, do I have a second? Mike seconds, do I have all in favor? Mike Elman. Mike Elman. All in favor, say aye, or raise your hand. Great, any opposition? No opposition, so that will go ahead and pass. Layla, thank you for this. All right, we're moving on to item H, which is the introduction of agenda items for future meetings. I'm going to direct go ahead.
Chair Coombs, if I may.
Sure.
Going back to the ad hoc subcommittees, it looks like there are two more additional ad hoc subcommittees that weren't addressed yet. One was from July 2023. It looks like it was a subcommittee on public safety issues related to use of bikes, e-bikes, and other micro mobility devices. The report was due January 2024.
There was
There was a
if I
presentation.
recall, there was a presentation from the
Yes.
department, so I don't remember exactly who was on that subcommittee, but were there outstanding questions
I'm
after that?
sure I'm the one who initiated it, and I know we did have the chief himself actually address a lot of the details, and I think that was satisfied.
Okay, so sunset that one?
Yes, please.
Okay. Chief?
I apologize. I'm going to stand corrected. The data is on the website, but finding it is difficult. So it
Okay.
took Steve Turner 2 months to find it. So, but what it speaks to is that it's fortuitous that we're developing a new website, so it's easier to navigate, because I was going in one direction, it was buried somewhere else. So again, an opportunity for the commission to work with Turner as far as the data, how that looks, and if it is complete. So that's what I would encourage.
Mike?
Just a suggestion, would it be possible for maybe commission members to be beta testers of the new website?
I could look at that. I'll talk to the group that we're working with, and I'll see what we can do for that.
And I do apologize, I know we're jumping around on a couple of different agenda items simultaneously, so.
Sorry about
All right, so as far as the website goes, we'll have commissioners involved in helping review the data. Commissioners have made a commitment to take a look at what's on the website right now. The data request, we've approved that going forward, and the department will have the ability to respond or deny, for that matter, any elements of it, and we're going to be test driving that process. And then there was one more, kind of jumping around a little bit, there was one more ad hoc subcommittee that you mentioned that we didn't address?
Yes, it looks like it was August 2023, which was a ad hoc subcommittee regarding past, current, proposed legislation around catalytic converter thefts, AB 1740 and SB 1087.
There,
Darn, he's got a good memory.
I
doesn't he?
do not. We had a presentation on
attribute
it.
that to Sherry. She had it all.
Sherry. All right, everybody glare at Sherry for this one. But I personally don't recall that and don't even know who was on it, but I do know, again, there was a presentation on catalytic converters, a fairly thorough presentation on catalytic converters as well. Does the commission feel the need for that ad hoc subcommittee to continue? So
I
we're
think that needs been met.
all right, so we're sunsetting that one as well. All right, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, so we are now, oh, Mike, go ahead. What do you got?
Since we've kind of concluded this, I would like to really see in the minutes, since I'm secretary, that all the subcommittees that are continuing are listed by name and who's on it and what their goals are.
And that was a commitment that I had made to work with Sherry on that to make sure that information gets reflected.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, we're on to item H, introduction of agenda items for future meetings. I'm going to recommend, we've got a number of things on here that say future. I'm really going to recommend, in the interest of time, that we really focus on what we want to cover next month as we look at this. So if folks can take a look, at item H on the agenda, there's a number of items that are listed there. There's a proposal for a mental health update. That coincides with something called May is Mental Health Month, and a lot of work that the county is doing and nationwide is happening around mental health. June, the dashboard is year in review, and then there's a number of future items. So if we're just focusing on May, I'd like everybody to take a look at the future items and see if there's anything on there that you may be interested in moving into May.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah. Oh,
Would it be
call me
appropriate-
James.
Would it be appropriate to ask the department which one of these they would be able to present effectively at that time? Because some of them may take longer.
Okay. So if we're turning that to the department to take a look at, the items include a presentation, discussion, and recommendations on policies, statistics, and outcomes related to the homeless population engagement. Yeah, it does. Presentation and discussion is the city's 2035 general plan and how it relates to Burbank Police Department. Update on AB 2147, the Freedom to Walk Act. Presentation and discussion on the update of the 2023 to 2025 strategic plan report. And a presentation on the patrol vehicles maintenance concerns, future purchases, and electric vehicles. Is there anything in particular that jumps out to you, Chief?
There's actually three. So mental health update, I think, would be appropriate.
Okay.
And it would just be an update. It's not going to be in depth because we're still on the journey with DMH, but it would be interesting for the public. Presentation on the patrol vehicles, maintenance concerns, the future, some of the technology that we're onboarding. I think that would be good because we have a couple of vehicles coming in. And then as far as the presentation, discussion, recommendations on homelessness, I think that we can manage that also.
Okay.
So those would be my top three.
Okay.
With mental health actually being just an update, and everybody knows about the new vehicle successes and all of that associated with that vehicle.
Fantastic. So we need to go ahead, motion, second, and vote on that. So Paul, go ahead.
Will the mental health vehicle be available to be seen at that time?
It will. It will.
Thank you. That'd be more than appropriate. I motion to accept.
Okay. Well, actually, we got a motion for each one. We got to go
Okay.
through each one. So what do you want to do?
I will motion that the patrol vehicles,
So
maintenance concerned, and the
Paul's motioning on the presentation on patrol vehicles. Do I have a second? Romick, all in favor? Show of hands or say aye. Any opposition? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and add that one to May. I'd like to go ahead and motion that we add a mental health update on the work of the mental health evaluation team and their status, including update on the work with the department, the Department of Mental Health, as far as the contracting process and everything goes. Do I have a second on that? Got a bunch of people. Let's take Mike on that one. Mike Chapman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, so we're going to do that one. And then the third one is the presentation, discussion, recommendations, if applicable, on the department's policy, statistics, and outcomes of our homeless population engagement.
I'll make the motion.
Paul's motioning. Ann's going to second. All in favor? Any opposition? One opposed? It passes. So we'll go ahead and add that third one. Any other agenda items for the month of May?
I'd like to just make note that May 15th happens to be Police Officer Memorial Day. I think we should acknowledge that at some point in time during the meeting, and I will probably be putting flowers prior to the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any other agenda items for the month of May? All right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and close this meeting. I want to acknowledge that this coming week, April 21st through 27th, is the National Crime Victims Week, and so we want to acknowledge that. That is put together by the Office for Victims of Crime, and our next meeting date is Wednesday, May 15th, 2024, 6 p.m. right here. And I adjourn this meeting.
Chair, before we adjourn, June is actually going to be a holiday. We're not going to be in session that day, just so
Okay.
everyone's aware.
Okay, thank you.
Juneteenth.
Thank you. Juneteenth, we are not in, Juneteenth, we will not be in session. It's June 19th. Yeah. Yeah, yep. There won't be a meeting in, there will not be a meeting in June, correct? That is correct. Okay. All right. Okay. All right, so I adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
So we didn't discuss future agenda items beyond May.
I asked if there were any additional agenda items.
In May, that's what.
We'll have to do it in May.